Welcome to part 4 of my Best of Next Fest 2023 February showcase. There's only a few parts left, so let's get started with today's episode of my favorite demos from the event. We are kicking things off with Monster Crawl. This is a 2D action roguelite that it basically dresses up the Gauntlet formula with roguelite elements. You'll be clearing out dungeons, monster spawners, and so on in order to collect the loot that you need to then spend to unlock additional features and powers after each run, or as this game calls it, a crawl. Now in this version of it, it features 2-player local co-op, and one of the issues I think I have with this demo is that it's definitely lacking in the aesthetics department. You're probably noticing there's no music at the moment, and that's because, well, there wasn't any music in the demo when we tried it. I double checked, I believe, to make sure that the music was actually, or if there was music, it was turned on, but it is just playing with sound effects right now. I think the game just kind of lacks a unique aesthetic at the moment. Regarding the multiplayer, I do hope we get to see, I think, a little bit more with the multiplayer aspects. Gauntlet, as we all remember, was up to 4-player co-op, and it would have been interesting to play a up to 4-person action roguelite. But there's definitely some promise here, and I hope we get, I think, a better demo to kind of show off the unique aspects of Monster Crawl in the future. We now have Cavern of Dreams, and this is a game that its entire mission statement is to be a long-lost N64 style 3D platformer. Think of the likes of Mario or Banjo-Kazooie. When our dragon siblings have been kidnapped and held in a mysterious cavern, it's up to us to go in and use the power of platforming and MacGuffins in order to save them. So this is one of those games that it is definitely not trying to reinvent the wheel or the dragon, as we can see here. But from what we played of this one, it does hit all the marks of the N64 era of platforming. You'll be going into individually themed worlds, looking for various items, MacGuffins, and gaining power-ups to aid you. Each world has its own set of unique puzzles you'll need to solve, and your ultimate goal is to collect your dragon eggs, and then feed them enough food to hatch them. And the number of dragons you hatch act as your progression MacGuffin, in the same vein as the Jiggies from Banjo-Kazooie. Your dragon gains the ability to kind of roll and go super fast, which may go a little bit too fast. I think make it like uncapped, depending upon how you do it. But this one was definitely a lot of fun. Again, if you're looking for a brand new original 3D platformer, Cavern of Dreams is probably not going to be it. But if Lunistis, that we played a few months ago, could certainly work with a PlayStation 1 3D platforming style, then this game can certainly do justice to the N64 era. And now it's time for our regular Vampire Survivor-like coverage with Witch Guild Simulator. This time we are a witch, as the name implies, trying to survive against waves and waves of, well, in this case, lots and lots of slimes. So the twist of this one is that each character has different abilities, different upgrades they'll get, and they'll handle a little bit differently compared to your usual fare. Beat enemies, gain experience, and you'll get more upgrades. Each character also gets kind of like a super move that they can activate, which this character's super gets modified based on what orbs you have surrounding them. It's a pretty novel take, but my main concern is how much it does feel different, or is it doing anything that is iterative on the, well, now VS-like formula. I found to be on the charming side, and if you're someone who isn't completely tired yet of VS-likes, this could be another fun one to check out. Before we get to our next game, no, the footage isn't broken here. The next game on my list comes with all the photosensitivity and seizure warnings, which is why I'm putting it here first. If you have any kind of photosensitivity or issues like that, definitely skip this next game's footage. Go to the next timestamp in the video, because otherwise this could be very painful for you. For our next game, this is Extreme Evolution Drive to Divinity, a 3D platformer where it is your job to try and find humanity, and the only way to do that is by evolving. The kind of hook of this one, besides the very out of this world or underworld aesthetic, is that all your forms each behave differently. They have their own physics, their own movement style, and so on. And you'll have to collect, I think that's money, I'm not quite sure what that resource is in the upper right, which will allow you to evolve. You'll find additional forms and areas to explore, and it plays like, I guess, a Metroidvania by way of Cruelty Squad? If that makes any kind of sense. As you explore the different worlds, each one looking more and more stranger. As you get further in, you'll get more abilities, you'll be able to return to areas, trying to do more and more. And as I said in the kind of preamble to this game is not easy on the eyes. And I'm purposely showing some of the later footage of this one, because trust me, it can get very painful to look at. So if you're looking for a 3D platformer that kind of defies all logic and common sense, and you don't suffer from photosensitivity, then Extreme Evolution could be a very unusual trip to a strange take on this genre. And now we have MistRogue. This is an action roguelike where you are trying to explore a mysterious living cave, and the only way to figure out why dungeons are coming to life and reshuffling themselves is to go spelunking. And by spelunking, I mean beat up a lot of monsters. So this one, in of itself, while it may look like a traditional roguelike, like a Shiren the Wanderer kind, with titles and movement, it plays and handles much like a 3D action RPG. You'll gain different abilities, you'll be able to dodge roll, and what you can and can't do will be dictated by the gear that you find. My one kind of concern with this is I'm not quite sure if they're aiming for this to be like a roguelite, that I'm unlocking new stuff that can then be brought into future dungeons, or if it's going all roguelite, where there is no persistence, nothing that can be kind of carried over or unlocked in the future. But this one does look charming, and like with any action roguelike, I'm curious to see where it may go when it is released. We now turn to Shattered Heaven. This is a single-player RPG that kind of borrows a lot of its design cues and elements from the deck-building roguelike genre. You'll be exploring multiple dungeons and going across this world over the entire length of the game. The individual battles themselves are fought much like a deck-building roguelike. You'll go into different dungeons, each with their own unique rules and modifiers that you'll need to brave in order to collect treasure and material, which you can then use to upgrade and level up your characters to then go out into more areas, see more quests, etc. Each character is their own unique individual with specific rules and cards that they can get. A big aspect of the card design is that different cards will kind of operate different rules based on whose deck they're in. The girl on the far right there, she gets ability that when she sacrifices a card, she builds up this kind of special resource that then lets her summon this demonic creature, and when that demonic creature is out, her cards gain additional modifiers to them. And this is one of those games that it is definitely not going for like a light or casual affair. It looks like there's going to be a lot of depth to these systems and how much content there is. Now, we didn't really get to see too much of the long-standing or the longer mechanics and elements in this one, but if you are looking for what appears to be a very in-depth single-player RPG, then Shattered Heaven should be on your radar. We now have Baldy Bounce. This is a 3D platformer where the story is that one day aliens invade, transforming people into various sporting objects and balls, as you can see here, and steal our hats. And the only way we're going to get them back, well, is to roll around as a soccer ball in order to save the day. So this is played kind of like an open world 3D platformer, with each stage being its own massive environment with mini games, challenges, and hidden things to find. As you play through, your main goal is to complete various challenges in order to unlock the exit portal. Now, standing in your way is that you are a soccer ball, complete with all the soccer ball physics one could imagine, such as being able to air dash and glide that I'm sure all soccer balls are able to do in real life. So this game is kind of focused entirely on low stakes. You're not going to worry about Super Meat Boy levels of precision and missiles and buzzsaws in this one, and the minigames themselves can be quite entertaining. The one thing about this game is that because it's very physics driven, it can feel a little janky in some spots, trying to make very fine motions, trying to land or target specific things. But I was getting into this one. I like that the different minigames have rewards that boost your abilities based on how well you play, but they don't feel necessarily required in order to enjoy this one. So, if you enjoy soccer balls and 3D platforming challenges, definitely check out Baldy Bounce. And with that, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we have a few more games to look at for today's showcase. If you're interested in my thoughts on design, then check out my game design books. For entry-level students, we have 20 essential games to study, and then the Game Design Deep Dive series that takes an extensive look at different genres, with more coming soon. We now turn to Horde Hunters. Yes, we have a double VS-like for our video this time. What makes Horde Hunters kind of stand out from the rest of the VS-likes is a greater emphasis on the map diversity and map situations. As always, you must survive against ever-escalating waves of miscellaneous enemies. But in this one, the different buildings that occupy each map will change what you need to do at any given moment. Completing a mission could unlock an AI partner who can do additional damage for you. Another mission may keep a building on the field that could provide you with such things like healing, additional money, etc., etc. And of course, the game has an extensive persistent elements, with being able to unlock better stats starting out, more characters, more things, and that kind of stuff. The one thing that I didn't like about this game is that it did feel, much like our other VS-like of this video, a little slow when you first start. This is another game where your character moves very slowly, the attacks don't have that same oomph that I see in like Vampire Survivors and some of the other ones. But the greater emphasis on the map diversity and what's going on said map does make it stand out from the pack. So if you're looking for a VS like that is trying to be a little bit more challenging, a little bit more deeper in that respect, then definitely check out the demo for Horde Hunters. We now have A Sister's Journey. This is a game that basically asks the question, hey, did you really like the jumping tech of Celeste? But did you think the game needed more gun? And if you said yes, then this is going to be the game for you. Our story is that our sister, as the title kind of alludes to, is missing. And the only way we're going to figure out where she is we're going to have to platform and shoot our way through a variety of environments. As I said a second ago, the jumping and movement tech is right out of Celeste. It's not, at least from what we play in the demo, going to be as physics driven as some of the advanced tech in that game, but you will be making use of an air dash as well as wall jumping and wall air dashing in order to make it through the various environments. Your gun, well, obviously is going to be used to shoot your way through the different enemies. There are bosses to fight. And the game features a similar system to that of Cave Story, that Enemies will drop these kinds of leveling up gems. When you collect enough, the weapon will level up, which will unlock more passive upgrades. And there is also a full skill tree for the different guns as well. So this game is definitely aiming on the advanced or more challenging side. You not only have to be really good at platforming, but you're going to have to be shooting your way through lots of enemies as well. There are going to be secrets, bonus collectibles, and so on. But I was really enjoying this one. And like I said, if you're looking for that kind of Celeste platforming, but with combat as well, then A Sister's Journey could be a really solid game for you to check out. And now we have Roots of Yggdrasil. This is described as a narrative city builder, but I see this more as kind of like a roguelike-ish style. Our story and mission is we're trying to repair the Tree of Yggdrasil. And to do that, we are going to have to build settlements all around different dimensions. The general process is that every map is procedurally generated, with different resource spots, different kind of nodes to explore, and different goals for each route. The routes themselves will have an objective that you need to complete on the map. Collect X amount of resources, explore X amount of areas, etc, etc. And as the game goes on, you'll be required to complete more kind of Yggdrasil sprouts on a map in order to win. Every turn you're able to play cards that you see in the bottom of the screen based on your resources. And there are three. You have money, you have combat/scouting, and you have research. The general rule is that the secondary or advanced structures will require you to have a certain number of villagers or settlement buildings nearby to populate it. And you can build them however you see fit. The map is fully 3D in that respect. The twist or the downside is that two secondary buildings cannot occupy the same radius. So you can have kind of some advanced play of just fitting in buildings just enough that a building can get all the settlements, and then a secondary copy of it can also get it without overlapping. At the top of the screen, you see kind of a turn measure. Every turn that passes fills up that bar, and when it hits these certain thresholds that you see on the map, an event happens. And the game will reward you based on how quickly you complete the objectives on the map and move on to the next one in kind of your roguelike chain. And as the game goes on, you'll get persistent unlocks and resources that can unlock more kind of leader powers, buildings that can show up, and all that great stuff. And I was enjoying this one. It's not going for kind of like the super complicated or very logistics focus of, say, an Anno and that kind of thing, but it plays sort of like a city builder puzzle-like in some respect as well. And at the time of recording this, they are, I believe, either in the middle or they're wrapping up a successful Kickstarter for the game as well. And if you are a city building fan looking for yet another different take on the genre, then definitely check out Roots of Yggdrasil. We now have Gods of Defense. This is another in the kind of tower defense roguelike subgenre we've been seeing lately. We are going with voxels this time, as it's up to us to defend our temple from evading enemies. After each wave, you're able to use your accumulated money to buy or upgrade existing towers, as well as unlock magic abilities and secondary effects. You'll need to decide which route the road will extend, which will of course determine where enemies are going to be coming from. After you are done a run, you're able to spend accumulated currency to unlock upgrades like permanent bonus gold, permanent damage, etc, etc. And this one I would say is on the okay side. I like the style with the voxel graphics, but it's hard to tell if there's going to be anything new with this formula that we haven't seen with some of the other entries. But if you are someone looking for another tower defense roguelike, I would at least give the demo for Gods of Defense a check. And now we have Trinity Fusion. This is an action roguelike that at the surface level it just kind of feels like sci-fi Dead Cells. It is a future where there is a multiverse, and it is in trouble, and the only way to save the day is to roguelite our way around, beating up all manner of creatures, robots, and more. So the general gameplay does remind me, as I said, a lot of Dead Cells. You can find different weapons, sub-items, and so on, which you can equip to your character, as well as being able to level them up during the course of a run. There is a persistent currency that will unlock additional features, such as starting with better stats, and so on. Now, the various gadgets and such that you get do feel a bit different compared to some of the norm. As you can see, I'm using this kind of drone to act as both scout and teleporter. You will find different weapons, each with their own stats, and you'll be moving through these areas, of course, trying to get from point A to point B and fighting bosses along the way. My main issue that I have with this game, much like with Dead Cells, is that it felt like while the levels were certainly wide, I just didn't really see a lot of reason to spend a lot of time in it. Just kind of push through, get to any kind of treasures or unlocks, and just like really not stop to do all that much. And I did not get a really good chance to see like the extent of the persistent unlocks that you'll be able to accumulate. But the general gameplay does feel solid, and if you are someone who is looking for a more science fiction-y take on the Dead Cells formula, then I would at least give Trinity Fusion a check. For the last game of our episode, this is Wall World. In this one, the world is apparently a giant wall. And in order to explore it, we need to take giant spider bots up and down and looking for resources and try to figure out what is going on. The loop here is a mix of going up the wall, trying to find mining spots, and then digging into the wall to collect resources which can then be used to upgrade and repair. And after a certain amount of time has passed, you will get attacked by whatever these strange aliens are that you will need to fight off in order to move to the next wave. Now, if it isn't obvious at this point, this game definitely draws heavy similarities to Dome Keeper, which is one of my favorite games of 2022. And from what I play of this one, it does seem to be doing a few things a little bit differently. There are permanent unlocks that you can find and get in the game to help you on future runs, and there's a little bit more of a lore to the fact that you're exploring the wall. With that said, however, the game, at least from the demo, does not have, I think, the same level of depth in terms of the different things you can find while mining, different tools, different builds, etc. that Dome Keeper had. And I'm still not quite sure from our play of this demo what the actual structure of this game is. Is this going to be a roguelike, where you're going to be playing on repeated runs trying to collect everything? Or is this going to be more of a story-driven game where once you make it to the top of the wall once, that's it, game over, we're done? But I did like what I was seeing in this one, and if you are looking for a slightly different take on the Dome Keeper formula, I would at least give this one a check, and if you've somehow not played Dome Keeper yet, I highly recommend that one as well. But with that said, we're going to end our showcase here. We only have one more night's worth of footage to go through, and then the Next Fest 2023 showcase is done for now. Thank you so much for watching. If you're new, do the liking, subscribing, commenting, and ring that bell people keep telling you to do. If you'd like me to tickle your game for a future stream and video, please get in touch. Visit our Discord and Patreon, and come back for daily sessions on game design here, and on Game Wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games.